Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the timeless child as she travels the vortex and landed at episode 463, where she discovers everything we know about her is a lie. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
Or are we?
I'm Sean.
I'm still Glenn. It's just I happen to have lived more lives prior to my originally what I thought was my first life. So
it's pretty impressive.
Which is just this one. So I've apparently had a life before this one.
I'm Sean.
At least one.
This is the hill I will die on.
Was Chris Chibnall watching Brain of Morbius and went, you know what I could do? I could fix this.
It's going to drive him nuts.
Oh, man.
Do you guys have a good week?
I think we need to have an episode where we rank the troll factor of each showrunner.
I don't know. I wouldn't even consider this trolling.
Oh.
This isn't a troll. This is not a troll. It inevitably trolled people in a way. This is lore busting is what this is. This isn't trolling. This is lore busting. I will talk about that in a little bit. It was a good week.
Do anything fun?
You can sing Lore Busters. I did not. I read some more, but I'll wait till you guys talk about your stuff because I'll do my little mini reviews real quick. Mm-hmm. They're Doctor Who related, so I'll wait.
I got through a few more discs of Catalyst.
Oh, okay.
I'm enjoying it. Well, I see what you mean about there's a lot of, do we really need to know that? Okay. But
it's still interesting.
It's very strange. I don't know why, because obviously we got that visual in Attack of the Clones and all freaked out when Pago the Lesser holds up the thing and it projects the Death Star ball and we all went, oh! It's weird to me to hear them talking about building it while the war is still going on.
I know, but it makes total sense.
It totally makes sense, but yet it's just that's another era that belongs in a different. If you're looking at the timeline of the Republic, this has a different symbol on this part of it. But
despite the fact that we see the frame of it at the end of
I think that's what makes it work. We see Pago the Lesser shows it to us in the little schematic thing that he has, and then later at the end of Revenge of the Sith, we see the core frame of it. So
but it's still
totally
kind of one of those. It's one of those things that I never put together until reading that book of, oh yeah, they would have to be building it during the war in secret.
Well, and the fact that it's Geonosian labor.
It's such a cool way to tie the prequels into the original trilogy.
And it, like I said, it totally makes sense, and it's a viable, yeah, absolutely. But my brain is still going, eh. And you guys know me, I have less problems with the prequels than most people, so I should be all over this. But for whatever reason, it's like, eh. Huh. So, but I'm enjoying it.
Oh, that's good. We finally watched Frozen 2.
What'd you think?
I like it. I think it's pretty good.
So did we. 10,000 times. I
think part of why I like it is it's not Frozen 1.
This is true.
And it's. I think it's got a slightly better story to it. The songs aren't quite as good, but I'm beginning to find myself singing them a bit more. So
you know what?
I wasn't wowed by the first movie's songs either right away.
It just occurred to me that you watch Frozen over and over and over and over again because of Shy, and you watch Frozen over and over and over again because of Gemma.
And you don't have an excuse?
I don't have an excuse. I just watch it over and over and over again.
I love Disney.
Sorry, Keith.
No, that's all right.
Glenn gets up in the morning. Let it go.
I do. I haven't watched it in a while. I watched it one more time before we went and saw Frozen 2. But it's one of those ones that I'll get up and I'll just have it run in the background. Just one of those movies.
It's gotten to the point where I start to find something else to do instead of sitting in the living room when Frozen's on. It's not driving me that crazy. It's just, I've seen it enough times. And I'm normally one that will rewatch stuff pretty easily.
Yeah.
I think that's what drives me crazy, is the fact that it's not that it's on. It's not that it's on again. It's the fact that I am sitting here watching it because it really is just that good.
And I've sucked every single little morsel I can off that bone. There's nothing new for me to glean from this movie anymore.
I'm like that parent from that Blockbuster commercial staring off into space going, "What's up, little pup?"
But Frozen 2, I think some of it suffers because it knows that, its audience watched the movie so many times ad nauseum, and so it wants to remind you of it in order to hit those feels. But at the same time, doesn't necessarily take into account that a lot of people came to it afterwards. So, like, there's a lot more mature things in it than I think than Jim is ready for. But it's like, yeah, I get that they're making the movie for kids 6 years later, the same audience, but they're not taking into account the fact that they've gained more audience as it's gone, not since the initial release. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it almost matured too much for the groups of people that have glommed onto it in Disney Plus or when it hit Blu-ray and once it really took off.
It really is
one of my
stuck in
small
that
complaints.
Weird place where it very much is aimed at that same audience that saw it and now has grown up 6 years later. So here's this more adult story, and yet we're going to spend so much of the movie recapping the first movie like you maybe don't remember it. It's like, no, we remember it pretty good.
We really don't need to be retold what happened.
Yeah. And there's a lot. There's a lot of recap. There's a lot of, remember this? This was funny. Hey, do you remember this character doing that thing? We're going to do that again.
But not as bad as it could have been. It wasn't a rehash.
I was about to say,
it could have been far worse.
I have seen movies that just completely retread the same jokes, and I thought this one did a nice job of harkening back, but not retreading things, out and out retreading. I mean, there's some shadows of similarities and stuff, but
even to some extent making fun of the first movie.
Yeah,
at several times. So I have one small complaint, but I'm not going to go into it here just because I need to go watch the deleted scenes to see if it resolves my issue. But
now I'm curious.
It's with Kristoff.
Okay.
I will go into it here. He has his great power ballad in the forest, and then we don't really see him again by himself or anything until he finally meets up with Anna, and then it's action, 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 and then they talk, and he's like, "It's okay. I didn't have any problem with you running off. My love's not fragile." But you were just singing about it kind of being fragile. Where was that bridge that got him to where, that doesn't bother anyone?
I sort of noticed that as well. I thought it was a really abrupt turnaround.
Why is the next time we see him riding the reindeer, swooping in the nick of time to save her?
That part I'm fine with.
But what you were just here, and now all of a sudden you're here, and you're... What happened?
I mean, I can kind of put the pieces together of he went back to join the group of them, but
there's some
the
missing
emotional
Kristoff
journey.
Story, I agree, because I kind of feel like there wasn't enough Kristoff in the film altogether. So
yeah.
I think it got cut on the end.
Yeah, I think so too. So I want to go watch the deleted scenes to see if it's there. That's my only real complaint with the film. Can't wait to start watching it ad nauseum.
Into the unknown.
I've had that in my head for a long time.
I will say that I think I like it better now that I've seen it several more times. Not that I didn't like
the
it.
movie or the song?
Both.
Oh, okay.
Like when it was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Song, I went, really? But then they played it at the Academy Awards, and I was like, oh yeah, it's that one.
Yeah, but they jazzed it up, having all the different
Well, see, and I think
vocalists do it.
For once, I think I kind of like the cover version better in the credits. I like the Panic at the Disco version a lot. A little bit more than the actual film version. And the Weezer version is pretty good too. Not of that song, but the other song, Have you guys watched that music video?
No, not yet.
Oh, it's hilarious. They pretty much reenact the entire scene, but it's them. And they even get Kristen Bell to come in and play Anna's part in that scene. It's pretty good.
Oh, good old Weezer.
Did you watch anything, Sean? Did you watch anything else?
No, I've seen that several times though.
Well, yes, I did. I watched Frozen 2 again.
Several times.
And
I think
again.
We've only watched it twice.
Ah.
So that's pretty good.
Shai was so happy. She's been, because they've been advertising it, pre-available on digital. She's like, I want to watch it. We don't have that one yet. It's right there. You got to wait. I'll go buy the disc and then it'll be there for reals. And then it was there for reals. And she just was like, no, not really. Kind of a quiet week.
Did you watch anything?
I did not
read
watch
your comics.
Well, wait a minute. Did I watch something? No, I didn't watch anything this week. No, Hermitcraft started again, so I've been watching that on YouTube. So that's one of my Minecraft series on YouTube. They just started a new season, so everybody has started from scratch, and that's kind of fun. I got on board kind of just after the season began last year, but everybody had already kind of established bases and stuff, and had really kind of got going, and they had a lot of materials. This is fun to watch all of them go back to scratch. And it kind of makes me go, no, that might be kind of fun to go back and start from scratch. But just
I'm not building this roller coaster. If you're going to reboot the realm,
you could finish the roller coaster. No, it's just it's a lot of fun to watch these guys. These pros go back to having to use stone tools and stuff. It's just like real primitive. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. No, I read some more of the Doctor Who first Doctor
real quick,
comics.
Is this a fictional? Is there a plot, or is it just guys playing Minecraft?
It's just really it's basically collab let's play. It's one big server where a lot of people are doing what we do on Mindtopia, where they've created a community. They have their own bases, what they do their own stuff, but they also come together and make shops and stuff like this. They coordinate some like sublines, some plots. It's not really fictional. I mean, they're themselves acknowledging I'm a YouTuber playing Minecraft, but they'll have little in-game stories that'll happen. Like they had a big civil war last year where a prank war ended up became two factions on two sides, and then they had these big giant prank wars where they built these big bases, and then that divulged into a capture the flag game where they fortified their bases, and the other team had to try to go in and get the three of the flags, and then they had this big. It's a lot of fun. Last year was the longest one they've done. Usually they last about a year. Last year it went about a year, almost 2 years, and that was the longest season they'd ever done. So they did a lot of stuff on it. But it's little, and you don't have to watch everybody, but there's at least. See, last year I think there was a dozen people on there. Some came and went. This year, there's a bunch of them. Or this season, there's a bunch of them on there. But you don't have to watch everybody. You can kind of pick your favorites, and each one of them has their own, channel that they're doing their stuff. But you'll find yourself watching one guy named Grian, and he will have interacted with somebody else on the server, and then you end up going watching their video because you got interested in what they were doing. And that's kind of how I went down that rabbit hole. There was a couple of guys I were watching, and I followed them over to Hermitcraft, and then I started watching everybody on Hermitcraft. So there's some I don't watch because they're just a little dry and boring, but I won't say who they are because I don't want to hurt any feelings. But
And you have time for this?
No, not really. That's another thing that kind of goes on in the background.
I'm not passing judgment. I'm just making a comment.
No. It's that stuff that kind of goes on in the background while I'm doing other things too, So, no, I don't have time for it at all, but I still end up doing it. And I sit there and I've watched 4 or 5 episodes from the week of people. There's another cool thing is there's 2 guys that do what's called Hermitcraft recap, which they will go and do clips. So it's like a best of the week from everybody's videos. Sometimes that one's fine enough just to catch up with what's going on in the server if I missed a week or missed some people. But anyway, no, I read some more First Doctor stories, so I was going to
continuing on with your great comic reread.
Yeah, so for anybody that maybe wasn't listening last week, I've gone back and I've decided to do comic stories for all the Doctors starting the First Doctor, and I'm using a website, and I should have had it pulled up here. Give me a second. I want to give this guy credit again.
It's that guy that's got everything logged and cataloged as far as timeline-wise,
yes.
Right?
ispider.org.uk.
Yeah, it's called The Complete Adventures is what the website is, and it's by a guy named Andrew Kearley. And I'll put the link in the show notes again, but I did get in the show notes last week too. So Anyway, but I'm using his, and as I said, he kind of has put everything in kind of a quasi chronological order of how things, and it's kind of Lance Parkin did a history, which is basically him squeezing everything into the unit, which that'll be fun to see how they. I'd like to see him write another edition, but
good luck.
But anyway, that's been my source, and so on his list, as far as the comics go, next in line was the in between times, which this was the humble. Thank you.
Bundle.
Thank you. This was the Humble Bundle offering that Titan gave out that was an exclusive for a while, and then they included it in the Seventh Doctor collection, which you guys actually had read. You guys read and reviewed it when we did the Seventh Doctor collection, because if you'll remember, I had read the individual issues, which didn't have it.
Yeah.
You guys had read the collection, and that was in there.
And this would be why.
Yeah, so this is the one where they're in the TARDIS, and Ian and Barbara go, and they find the art collection that Susan has done. She's got all these different things, and what I really liked about it was they do something that wasn't done in the series back in the day. The companions get to explore or get a little bit of a tour of the depths of the TARDIS, of what's going on. And I think one of the things that stood out to me was the Doctor has this like laboratory with this big creature in a glass jar, and I keep thinking, what is this creature doing in a glass jar? What are you doing with this creature? But I liked it. I thought it was kind of funny. It had a few little meta moments in it, especially the Doctor saying Ian's name, because that was something that, had that comic come out 30, 40, 50 years ago, 40 years ago, they wouldn't have done that. It's not something they would have shown. But now that that's become such a part of Who history, and it's become a thing that they do that. And I think it's kind of neat that it almost makes an excuse for it happening back then. It's no longer a flub. It's a part of the Doctor's character, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I had to chuckle at that a little bit. Susan still feels very alien here, which I like, because if going based on Keeley's list here, this is shortly after Marco Polo. This is right around that same, early on. We're just learning about the Doctor and Susan, and she does feel very, very alien, very in those early ones. She's very she's not your typical, Earth teenager, because she's not, obviously.
She's an unearthly child.
Yeah. So I like that, but overall, I enjoyed it. I thought it was neat. It's a little interlude, so there's not much to it, which comes to my second one, which I think we have read as well. I'm confirming with Keith during the week because I couldn't remember this story at all. But in the Third Doctor or the 13th Doctor's when she got her new series, they did the mini lives of Doctor Who, which was several different stories from all of the Doctor's eras, and they were very short stories. This is the first part in this one called The Path of Skulls. That was written by Richard Denick, and it was part of the mini lives of Doctor Who. And this also still follows Marco Polo as far as the order goes. I liked it. It was very short and sweet. This is the one where they've landed on this planet. They basically find a path of skulls. I mean, it's literally what it's called, what it says. And Ian and Barbara immediately assume the worst, that it's some sort of like because at the end of the path there's this big altar-looking thing, and they automatically, Ian's already presuming that these are the skulls of the victims that have been sacrificed on this altar at this path. And the Doctor kind of looks at it from a different way, because he sees that these are people, or these creatures are being revered and remembered, and this is like kind of a monument to them. And that's simply all it is, just to give you a little insight into the character of how the companions may think one way because they're not quite as learned as the Doctor as far as exploration and travel. So I thought that was kind of neat.
I kind of remember that one now.
You do remember that one? You don't remember.
Now that I'm looking at the pictures.
Yeah. Well, and that was what I looked at and sort of remembered it too, but I didn't remember the story of it.
I definitely remember the collection, because it's bookended with it's the 12th Doctor telling the 13th Doctor as he's regenerating.
During the regeneration, yeah.
Remembering these stories.
Yeah, and that part I remember.
I remembered the setup to that as well, yeah, but this particular piece I didn't remember it all. I had blocked that story out or had completely forgotten that story.
Because
So.
it was the first one you read. And you had
Could be. I had to go
12.
through 12 more to go. Well, the next one is called A Religious Experience. I did 4 this week. I'm running through them really quick, though, so I don't take up too much time. A Religious Experience, it's writer's Tim Quinn. This is actually from the Doctor Who yearbook, 1994. So this is a little bit older. It goes back. According to Keeley's Guide, it takes place between the Space Museum and the Chase. So as you know, it's got still has Barbara and Ian, but Vicky is now traveling with them. But we find that Ian and the Doctor are exploring, and Vicky and Barbara have stayed back with the TARDIS, and the two get rescued, or the two come across these local tribesmen on this planet, and they're fighting this giant worm, or they're not necessarily going to fight it. They're trying to scurry from it, or this worm's attacking them. Well, the Doctor and Ian sort of come to the rescue by the Doctor providing Ian with a cricket ball. Which is very similar, or maybe perhaps the same cricket ball that the Fifth Doctor carries around, and then the 10th Doctor ends up using in what was the story he used that? Was it in Human Nature? No, yes, it was in Human Nature. And he ends up clobbering the worm, throwing it and clobbering the worm with it. The worm scurries off, and he saves these tribesmen. So the tribesmen sort of take him back to their village or their tribe or whatever, and showering them with praise and gifts and things like that, and
they eat them.
No, they don't eat them, but they're well, we're getting there. But the Doctor and Ian are kind of having this conversation as Ian sort of feels uncomfortable about being praised by these people, and the Doctor's kind of just soaking it up, saying, well, they don't know any better. This is kind of their way, and it's not until they realize that they're about to offer a young female for sacrifice in their honor that Ian decides, well, this is enough, and the Doctor says, yeah, maybe we should do something about this. Ian goes up and punches the guy that's going to sacrifice her, and they decide they're not going to sacrifice her. And Ian's like, okay, that's enough. We're off. And he takes off. He leaves, and the Doctor leaves. They get back in the TARDIS, and they take off. And they have a little conversation about the Doctor say, well, they don't know any better because they're simple-minded. We already experienced this with the Aztecs. It's kind of the same boat. And Ian throws back well, you said our interference there kind of changes time. We shouldn't be doing that. Blah blah blah. It ends with a little coda of the 7th Doctor coming back to revisit and to these tribes in order to sort of, maybe he's over the years sussed out that perhaps they didn't quite put a finale on it, and when he comes back they have these huge monuments to the Doctor and Ian, and they have been basically worshiping them for all of these years. And he says, and he simply just ends it with saying, it's time to end this. And so that's kind of where they end it. And it's nice little coda on it, puts a dot on it. Not the greatest of story. It's a little wordy. There's not a lot that goes on, but it was kind of an interesting story. And then the third story I did, which this was my favorite of them. It's called Are You Listening? It was by Warwick Gray. This was in Doctor Who magazine, summer of 1994, which is weird that these both were 1994. This one is Stephen and Vicky, and they arrive with the Doctor on a planet that looks like this massive city. It's kind of almost Coruscant-ish, but there's no life. It's devoid of life. There's nothing. But the thing is,
you're on a Sunday.
you're getting the dialogue of the narrator. The narrator in this story is not the Doctor or Ian or Vicky. In fact, we don't hear any dialogue from them at all. The dialogue comes what is perceived to be a self-aware city, and this city is self-aware, and it almost seems excited that there's these new visitors, and it wants to contact them and talk to them and ask them questions. It doesn't really go into why or what facilitated the fact that it's self-aware and that there's nobody in the city, but it sends these drones in order to make contact with them, in order to get some questions answered and communicate with them. Well, it ends up scaring the Doctor and Ian and Vicky off, and so they end up running from it. And that's kind of how it ends. There is the city was just trying to reach out and inquisitively ask questions, learn about the visitors, and indirectly scared them off because they felt they were being confronted by these drones that were, out coming to attack them, or they
smile.
Yeah, it would very much smile. And so, and it's simply that. That's it. That's all the story is. Now, later in the story, and I didn't go on because I'm waiting for my 7th Doctor read, the Doctor, I did peek ahead, the Doctor returns as the 7th Doctor, again, to this city, and from what I gleaned from just the little bit I read is they realized there was a misunderstanding at that point. So I'm excited to go further on and read this and see how this, kind of the coded to this as well.
Cool.
So those were the 4 that I did. And I have started Doctor Who and the Kleptons, which is the very first story in TV comics, which is the ones where he's traveling with his granddaughter and grandson, John and Jillian. So it'll be my review for next week.
And so he's put those not before the series.
He is right, not before, and a reason being, and he's not the only one that's done this. There's been a lot of people that have argued for this, but he has placed these stories during the point where Stephen is already traveling with him, but I think it is post Sarah Kingdom. In fact, I think I can look here. I think it is after. It's after the Daleks master plan. And it says in here that having glimpsed the future, the Doctor's more aware of his mortality. And I think there's some other stories in here that have happened that leads to this. And he's coming to terms with his upcoming regeneration. So having been granted some degree of freedom by Rassilon from an earlier story, he decides not to return to Stephen immediately, but to travel on his own for a while. So I'm assuming in one of the stories between the TV story, The Daleks' Master Plan, and the books, and I think, I guess they're Big Finish Companion Chronicles, and one Doctor Who Monthly story, apparently there's an encounter with Rassilon. And so that's why he's kind of placed him here. In fact, there are some more stories following that also take place prior to even him traveling with John and Jillian. But so he has placed those kind of late in the Doctor's timeline. Yeah. So those are coming up now. And again, I'm just strictly going in his order. There's no right or wrong as to where these are placed. And a lot of people will say, they're not canonical anyway, so they don't count. But with me, I kind of try to make everything part of continuity, and I appreciate the fact that so does Andrew Curley.
His list, I'm scrolling through his list. It's pretty impressive.
It is impressive, and he's been keeping up with it, which is what
all the way up
I
to
really
13th
appreciate.
Doctor.
Yep.
So skip to the end and let me know when the Master destroys Gallifrey. When is that set?
He does not have Timeless Children in there. He's got Ascension of the Cybermen in there, but he does not have he hasn't updated the most recent episode.
Oh, bother.
So there you go. If I'm not boring you, I'll continue doing some of these.
No, I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, shall we move on to news?
Yes. As you probably saw after the credit, if you watched through the credits, the Doctor will return in Revolution of the Daleks. That will be this year's festive special. They are not committing one way or another if it's going to be Christmas or New Year's. I think they're probably going to wait and see how the schedule winds up, where they need to place it.
I had actually got spoiled on that before I even saw the episode.
So did I.
Luckily, I didn't get spoiled on the episode. But I had seen a little quick blurb on Twitter or something that, so we are getting a holiday special this year. And so I was like, okay. So I avoided the rest of the day the internet after I saw that because I thought, well, I don't want to know anymore. And then so when I saw, the Doctor will return in Revelation of the Daleks, I went, okay. Well,
that's pretty much all it was.
Must have been what it was.
The only other bits that we kind of get out of this is that all 3 companions will be starring in the upcoming festive episode, as well as Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor.
What's the name of this again?
Revolution
of the
Daleks.
Revolution. So we have another R.
Yeah.
Technically, yeah. Now the
It's our
fifth R.
Yeah.
Are you counting
Resolution.
Are you counting resolution in parentheses, even though it's not there?
Parentheses of the Daleks. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm convinced the only reason they didn't do it was because there was only one Dalek.
That's true, because it wouldn't be of the Daleks. It'd just be of the Dalek.
Yeah.
Resolution of the Dalek. Which
Would have been
works.
fine. Yeah.
Well, it still would work as resolution of the Daleks because you could argue that he was the resolution of the Daleks, of the race, of the species, because it starts out explaining about the Dalek
That's
War and how they buried the parts of the final Dalek, the scout Dalek that went. But he is the resolution of the Daleks.
True.
Yeah.
Okay, headcanon.
It still works.
Somebody hand me a Sharpie so I can go mark on my Blu-ray.
Let's print off a new one. Next in news, they have announced a new short story and novella collection called I Am the Master, Legends of the Renegade Time Lord. So previously there was a collection of short stories just about Missy. This is going to cover 6 of his incarnations, including a quest to free alien warlords, a dangerous mission to save a vital ally, a meeting with Bram Stoker, shattering of lives on a distant world, a trial of wits to gain untold power, and also a story from the Master's latest incarnation during his 77 years of imprisonment on Earth. Did we know it was 77 years?
Well, it follows because she dumped him in World War II.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah.
That's 77 years.
That's
Okay.
77 years.
Okay.
Oh, you're not talking when he's in disguise.
Yeah, I was thinking
okay.
when he was in disguise. But yeah, no, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
That would be 77 years.
I'm sure I'll read it. I don't know that I can get all excited about it for the same reason that while I like the character and I like Missy, but I didn't run out and grab that book either. And I think part of that is because I can't get as excited about something that's tangentially related to the Doctor. You know, and if the Doctor's involved, I'm all on it. I'm all in it 100%. If it's kind of tangential, I'm not as interested, although we've, obviously gotten into the Lethbridge Stewart series, which has no Doctor whatsoever, and we're thoroughly enjoying it. So I'm not saying that I wouldn't enjoy it. It's just it doesn't spark any interest in me right away. It's something that when I fall across later, I end up enjoying, but it's not something that gets me excited to go out and pursue it right away. So
part of it too, I think, for me is the newness. When you come back with, remember that one character from that one episode? We give you this. It's like, oh, cool. All right. When it's, hey, remember that character you saw last week?
Yeah, that's certainly true.
Unless it's Baby Yoda, I'm not sure I need more of it.
Well, we've had so much of the Master in general. It's not just this incarnation. It's 6 incarnations. So it's not like it's, I'm dying to know more about this version. It's a variety. So it's kind of like, it's a cool collection to have, but
now, if they put Eric Roberts on the cover, then
I wonder if Eric will be one of the 6 incarnations.
You know what I'm more excited about, and I'm gonna flub this because I can't remember what the name of the group is either. But there's a company out there, a group. I think it's more of a fan group that does their own publications, but they do unofficial Doctor Who annuals. And so they're done in the style of the Doctor Who annuals that we used to get back in the day.
Really?
Yeah, and they've done a few of the publications. I think they just did the unofficial Doctor Who TV annual, I want to say for like 1984, and it's got Colin Baker. It's got the 6th Doctor. It's mostly focused around that. But their next publication is coming out as the unofficial guide to, or not the unofficial guide, the unofficial Master. The annual, Master Annual, 1970 something, but it's Delgado. It's all specifically Delgado's Master, and they wanted. It was I think they were shooting for a target date of getting it out this week because apparently sometime this week I think would have been Delgado's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Just a couple days ago.
Yeah, so I think that was their target date. Unfortunately, it's been delayed by a month. But I'm actually more excited about that than I am something that's official coming out. So, but I think part of that's because we're not as you said, we just saw the Master, and I'm sure some of these stories could be Delgado's Doctor in this book, but we just saw the Master, and it still feels really like new and recent with the Delgado stuff, and it's just Delgado. I haven't, seen a lot of Delgado recently, so I'm really excited about that. So, if I can find that group, I'll put a link in the show notes as well on that.
Yeah, because I want to order some annuals. I only have 2, and they're the greatest things ever, and I've reread them and 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 reread them.
You ought to go to eBay. A lot of times you can pick up Doctor Who annuals for a pretty decent price. I mean, they're obviously going to be a little more than you would have paid for them then, but not, astronomical.
That's
amount.
a rabbit hole I'm not quite willing to fall down.
Because then he's got to have all of them.
Yeah, right now those 2 are just sitting there. If I pick up a third, man, that's a slippery slope.
Our last
Not
bit
like
of
the show's been on for 50 years.
plus. Our last bit of news comes from the folks over at Candy Jar Books. The next novel in the Bloodlines storyline is available for pre-order. It's the 4th installment of the 5-book sequence of novels. And I'd read out. I read this blurb, and I was so confused because we're so far behind that it made not a lick of. There are names that I understand, but that's about it.
Well, shame on you for reading the blurb then.
Yeah.
Yeah, shame on us for getting behind, but between the Big Finish anniversary and the show coming back, and we have kind of fallen off.
We have fallen off.
But, reminder, next week, Laughing Gnome.
Yay!
Havoc Files.
Havoc Files.
But if you have not fallen off, listener, you can go pre-order book 4 of the next storyline.
And I suppose that's an important note, is we have fallen off the pace. We have not given up on them by any stretch of the imagination.
No,
we are still continuing forward. We are still doing reviews
and
looking forward to getting back into them. So, rest assured, constant listener.
And they assure us that Downtime 2 is still coming.
I just saw that Andy was working on it.
That was kind of shade throwing there, Keith.
Just saying. That's it for news. First up in feedback is Jamie.
Jamie writes, Series 12, Episode 10. Wow. Just wow. Okay, Vortexers, where do we go from here? The Doctor imprisoned by the Jadoon, the companions, the fam back home, and everything about the Doctor, the Time Lords, and Gallifrey turned on its head. It's a good episode. The story of the Timeless Child is well told. The Cybermen parts are well done and keep your attention. I love this incarnation and really hope they bring him back. Ashad was a really good villain over these past 3 episodes, though I'm getting tired of the powers that be pairing the Cybermen with the Master, as seen in Series 8, Series 10, and now Series 12. As much as I enjoy the Master, maybe it's time to retire him for a while. I'm very interested in your thoughts on this episode, and very interested to see how we get out of the cliffhanger we've been left with. Sorry if I'm kind of all over the place. I'm liking Jodie's performance after a lackluster performance last season. Here she's a tour de force. Her anger at the Master is impressive. I'm thinking that next season will be the fallout from this. In some ways, this feels like the realization of the Cardinal Master Plan. The design of the Cyber Masters is really cool. Again, bouncing. We've got an answer to the Ruth Doctor, and the unknown faces from Brain of Morbius are explained. I'm okay with it. I still think having the Morbius faces being past incarnations of Morbius is better, though. So, Series 12 as a whole. Graham is charming as ever. Ryan's just kind of there, but still enjoyable and relevant. Yaz has really come into her own and grown as a companion. This is the Yaz I wanted to see last season, but didn't. And so the fam has survived. I'm predicting they will officially leave in Revolution of the Daleks to allow for a new companion in Series 13. This season is so much better than last season. Whereas last season was just kind of bland and safe, this season was big and took risks. Yes, there were low points. Looking at you, Orphan 55. But on the whole, it was so much better. Thank you, Jamie.
Yes.
Thank you, Jamie. Up next in feedback is Holly. She writes, "Hey guys, man oh man, what an episode. Still trying to wrap my head around the whole thing. I really thought the Master was going to be revealed as a timeless child. Those Cybermen Time Lords were really creepy. The ending with the Jadoon coming and locking the Doctor up, how is she going to get out of this mess? And I wish I knew more about the guy who took the Doctor's place. Could it have been the one who found the Doctor as an orphan? Wonder how much of this revelation is going to play into the holiday special and the next series. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin."
Thank you, Holly.
Holly, I did not get the impression that that guy was the one who found the Doctor as an orphan. He was just the one who kind of kicked everything off by sending the Siberia back in time.
Yes.
Or at least part of the group that did.
Yes.
So he was just taking his ownership from there.
Yep. Andy, good friend of the show, Andy Frankham Allen, he
Speaking of which,
he sort of he tweeted some stuff out the other night and then told us that if we wanted to use that as feedback, we could. So we're going to, because he had some good things to say about it. He says, "Well, Doctor Who, nothing revolutionary and totally unexpected, but as someone who's never tried to deny what happened in Brain Morbius, it's good that this finally acknowledged that what was shown in the story is what the script said. How many lives have you lived?" Thinking more on Doctor Who last night, despite the hyperbole of the people who run the official Who social media, which is now verging on sociopathy, nothing's really changed at all. We've known a lot since 1976. Most fans have just refused to accept it and have tried to find ways to ignore it. All last night did was to further the mystery. The Doctor's still the Doctor, still a mysterious figure whose past we know little about. Still don't know where she's from, who she is. Oh yes, and that the Doctor started out as a girl, as far as is currently known, is endlessly amazing. Take that, not my Doctor haters. And then he goes on to say, thinking more on it, what we saw last night only confirmed that what we already knew from, in particular, season 25. That the Doctor was involved in the birth of the Time Lord Society, that he was there back then in what had to be and is now confirmed a pre-Hartnell life. My new headcanon is thus: when he regenerated into McCoy, some of his memory blocks were broken down, and it took him a while to sift through them. But in that incarnation, he was able to deal with them and protect the secrets of his past. But those memories were lost again. Oh, and deliciously, the Cybermen could have learned about this in Silver Nemesis if they'd been interested, but they weren't. Ironic that they were on hand when the Doctor learns some of the truth again last night. And that's true, because even, is it Lady Pinafore? She alludes to the fact that the Doctor is older than, or has had past lives in that. And I can't remember exactly how it's presented, but she alludes to that idea too, and which, as they say, was part of the McCartnell master plan, where they were setting up the fact that he was more involved in the foundation of Time Lord Society.
Lady Fancy Pants had it right.
Lady Fancy Pants had it right. He goes on to say, so in short, taking in both Brain of Morbius and season 25 last night didn't change anything even slightly, just added a few more details to the stuff already known. Well, thank you, Andy, for pointing that out, and I'm glad that you said those things, because I would agree with you.
Yeah.
Next up is Ben Buckles.
Ben, who a friend of the show, wrote to us on Facebook saying, I think they made a potentially fatal error in the new Doctor Who. I first saw it in Silence of the Lambs books and films. What made that character in the books and films so scary mysterious was that you didn't know his backstory. You just knew he was so dangerous he could kill you with a paperclip. Yet he was a brilliant psychologist with dozens of degrees. Readers and film viewers kept clamoring for more and more stories, causing the author to devote one of the novels to his childhood and upbringing. And once you knew that, he wasn't scary anymore. Interest in the series died. What made the Doctor strong, unlimited, clever, smart, and all those qualities and more was that you didn't know where those qualities came from, nor did we know if he had any limits, what he could do or could not do. He could do or be anything and everything. And ever since the program has returned, whether on screen or in the novels and comics, writers have been chipping away at the Doctor's mysterious past and background, and this constant chipping story arc has the potential of ruining the mystique, reducing him to just another superhero. What's interesting is that we were given the backstory and origins from the start for Superman and Batman. Such didn't diminish them, but gave them their core principles. We knew they were who they were due to their past, and it gave them their strength. But when super characters have been created first with mysterious origins, and then later reveal them, it tends to ruin the character and kill the interest. The few times we got a glimpse of the Doctor's background during the classic years were always balanced with the reveal somehow strengthening our confidence in him, served as a plot device for the Doctor to tap into his background to become better and triumph. Such was attempted toward the end of this last episode, but it fails. Those past revealed tidbits were just that, little glimpses balanced by massive, big triumphs. This last episode's story arc was a big build-up with a confusing backstory reveal, solved by a quick, rushed patchwork confusing success wrapped up to solve it. I fear from this day forward, instead of fans telling new potential viewers the typical backstory, a Time Lord who runs away, travels in time and space with companion friends, righting wrongs without using weapons, is now going to be a person from another dimension or universe who founded the Time Lord race, who runs away. Knowing that, is their interest going to be piqued? See this as something that has always been set apart from the typical sci-fi and superheroes, or just another typical one. Stop tinkering with the Doctor. Stop trying to make him into some internally tortured soul, and let him be a man in a box having adventures traveling the universe. Thank you, Ben.
We'll get into that. I can see his points, but I disagree with several of the points of that. What I think is I think what happened is it adds to the mystery of the Doctor. It gives us a new place to go from in order to learn more about the hero rather than chip away and make them more of an omnipotent being, because I don't think that's what I've seen a lot of people. It's not just Brian that said that, or Ben that said that. There's been a lot of people that have said, well, it just makes him into this godlike being. And I don't think they've done that at all. I think what they've done is they've given us more room to tell more stories and to give even more interesting and mysterious background to the Doctor. But we can talk about that when we get into the reviews.
That's what Tim felt on TARDIS Sauce, if that makes you feel any better.
Well, and it chipped away more at the Time Lords
Spoilers.
than the Doctor, I think. Because, yeah, we learned more about the Doctor, but more so about the founding of Time Lord Society.
Yeah, I think what it did is it really kind of, and I think this is why they made it why they stripped her memory, and why they eradicated some of the information from the Matrix, is this really kind of drops Rassilon and Omega down a lot of notches as far as being these great heroes of time, and these the society has set them up on these pedestals of the greatness that they achieved. And,
although they still achieved greatness with
time
travel
they
aspect.
did, but it really knocked them down an aspect, because it wasn't just they're not the fathers. They're not the entirety of the fatherhood of the Time Lord Society. There's another element in there, and it's the other.
But realistically, as we've said before, every time we get a piece of information about Rassilon, we realize how despicable he really was.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So are we surprised that once he seized control that he rewrote a little bit of the history?
No, not at all.
In fact, it's more in his purview, because as they've alluded to, people suspect that he really he was the reason why Omega, ended up being trapped in the antimatter dimension as well. So it's trying to capture the heart of that black hole. So
how much of the founding of Time Lord Society was really Omega, and Rassilon bumped him off, trapped him,
right,
took credit for
exactly.
it.
Well,
that's what's implied.
Yeah, they have implied that. They've implied it in several materials. Excuse me.
So what if Teteyun, is that the
Teteyun? Yeah.
What if this individual was Rassilon before they took the name Rassilon?
Possible, I suppose.
Because,
I don't think it is.
Experimenting on your child.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you why I
That's a
don't think
Rassilon
that.
thing.
Because I think Tetuan had to have been. Had it been Rassilon, I think he would have taken credit for everything, and he only really takes credit for time, obtaining time travel and setting up the Time Lord Society, and in lieu, or in conjunction with that, overthrowing was it Pythia, which was the original ruler of Gallifrey. So I think he would have taken credit for that. I think he would have at least taken credit for finding the ability to regenerate, even if he didn't admit that he had taken it from this mysterious timeless child that he had found somewhere. I think that he would have taken credit for that, and he hasn't taken credit for, that we know of, taking credit for figuring out how to get the regeneration cycles.
Right.
You got a synopsis? Let's just get into our reviews.
This is going to hurt. In the epic and emotional series finale, the Cybermen are on the march, and as the last remaining humans are ruthlessly hunted down, Graham, Ryan, and Yaz face a terrifying fight to survive. Civilizations fall, others rise anew, lies are exposed, truths are revealed, battles are fought, and for the Doctor, trapped and alone, nothing will ever be the same again.
We think.
Go ahead.
Possibly.
Maybe. Do it, Sean. You're not going to do it?
No, I'm not going to do it.
Oh, you didn't like it?
I won't say that.
No, you did like it. I know why, because I already saw your TARDIS grade.
It should have an asterisk on it. There are, yes, I liked it. There are some absolutely massive, huge ideas. There is a lot of audacity. There is a lot of swinging for the fences and go big or go home. And I like that. I really appreciate the fact that they tried to tell this absolutely gargantuan, series-shattering story. I think a lot of it was stuff that had been borrowed, very much standing on the shoulders of giants and kind of copying some ideas and maybe not necessarily doing it better. I think a lot of it was stuff that almost worked. And I think there's a lot of stuff that I'm trying to decide. I go back and forth on this. If Chibnall is as clever as he thinks he is. Because there's a very, very cool, clever thing that was done with this massive reveal that didn't change anything. I mean, realistically, at the end of the day, the Doctor is still the Doctor.
Yeah, yeah.
And they, they yanked the rug out from underneath us, and it's the same rug underneath it.
That's just it, though. I think that it has massive implications for the lore, but it doesn't undermine everything that we, as Who fans, have loved and believed about the Doctor. And I think that's what it. I think that's where it works, because it lands on two levels. Even though it's really made a lot of people mad, it's made just as many people excited about what has been done and what's been established, and what it did for a lot of, as Andy pointed out, people that kind of had always felt that there were Hartnell generations of the Doctor, that Bray Morbius had established that I don't want to say it was there was almost a safety net underneath this big, massive change, but there was a safety net under this massive change. He didn't take and completely uproot the lore, and he didn't completely uproot the character of the Doctor, but he gave us a lot of things to think about. After that episode aired Sunday night, who got the biggest payout for this? Big Finish Audio. They've got a good another 20 years worth of material now, just because of the fact that they opened up doctors' lives pre-Hartnell.
They can do anything they want now.
It almost makes an argument. It doesn't entirely, but it almost makes an argument for the Unbound doctors now.
Oh, I totally think it does.
But it doesn't, because a lot of those stories, and we'll get to them, are what ifs, and not that this is a different doctor at a different time. In some occasions, it's the doctor. What if the doctor, Susan and the doctor didn't take Ian and Barbara on board, and what if they did? So there's a lot of what if scenarios that are really still work as Elseworld stories and not necessarily, but there are a few in there, and one of them in particular I think is the most recent Bernice Summerfield story in the Unbound Doctor universe, where that doctor actually could have been, that she may have encountered a doctor that was pre-Hartnell. So there is some indication, and again, we'll know better when we've listened to the Unbound series, but there is some indication that some of the Unbound may even be worked into but there are some that can't, just based on from the synopsis.
Yeah, and in my mind, he's managed to canonize all of the oddball, Shaka Doctor.
Yeah.
That's now okay. It just happened pre-Hartnell.
Even Cushing. Even although Cushing's little storylines are a little
that one's a little
similar.
tougher to deal with, but maybe because he's not going to remember, so maybe he doesn't know that he's not human. All right.
The issue with the Cushings or the storylines are similar enough that for him to go through the events again, it would cause a problem.
Well,
as from the Dalek perspective,
there's a lot more with the Cushing stories that don't work anyway. But besides that, I don't think it works for the Cushing.
It can also justify every version of Shada. He just doesn't remember doing it.
That's a good point. Speaking of Shada,
I knew it was going to get in here eventually.
No, I'm giving you credit for your Shada connection last week. I'm going to give you credit.
Oh?
Because there's a lot of speculation, and I agree with this, and I hope this is that I'm jumping to the end of the story, but that ship that she's on, that they pull out from, a lot of people are saying it looks very much like some of the model shots of Shada from the original version of that. And there's a lot of people speculating that she's in that the prison is not Stormcage, it's Shada.
It doesn't look like Stormcage.
No,
it
didn't look like
I didn't get a good enough look at it, and I couldn't decide if it was supposed to be Stormcage or not. And I kind of thought, well, it's interesting if they decide to go there, or maybe.
There's a lot of people saying that is Shada. They suspect that is Shada. Which I don't know why the Jadoon's using Shada for imprisonment, but it's the Time Lords that contracted.
That's true.
Because if it's the same group that was hired when they were tracking the Renegade Doctor, which was the Ruth Doctor, and because that was the same Jadoon, then there's a possibility that the Time Lords, especially pre-Hartnell Doctor, would incarcerate her in Shada.
It's true. All they needed was a location. All they had to have was to teleport her.
Exactly. So
they don't even need access to the prison.
Nope. So I'm giving you tons of credit. In fact, I sat down. I sat down to edit the show. And I remembered in last week's episode, I gave you a hard time because I was like, no, I mean, number one, you were misremembering Shada. There weren't any empty timelines, and so but then I thought, well, I need an episode title. So I called the episode Ashad, Shada, coincidence, ? And I thought, I'll throw him a bone. And then I watched this week and I went, if that is Shada, then I am totally giving that all to him. He didn't connect the dots in the right way. He was kind of like the kid that turned the Pizza Hut placeholder over and just connected the dots because they didn't, in any way they wanted and made a totally different picture. That's how he connected the dots. But I'm still going to give him the credit for connecting those dots.
He still made a picture.
Got there in the end. Yeah, I made the joke earlier that all of my theories, every single last one of them regarding this whole season were wrong and not even close and out the window. But I guess if Shada
we'll give you that one. We'll give you that one. if next Christmas or next holiday time that's Shada, you've won.
Wow.
You won one.
I win the internet. No, there's a ton of things that I don't know. There's a ton of stuff to really get excited about and like. And there's a ton of stuff that I can see why fans are like, that's not my, you can't do that, blah, blah, blah. And for those people, if you're one of those people that's genuinely upset about the Morbius thing, that's a hill, honestly, that I thought I would die on once upon a time. That, no, those are Morbius's faces, not the Doctor's faces. And now I have to go back and relook at that and go, well, maybe not. But if you're one of those people that's genuinely upset over that, here's the outs, because Chibnall worked so many outs into this story. First of all, the Master's the one telling the story.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he is
He's
an
a
unreliable narrator.
2, the first thing out of his mouth is, I was in the Matrix poking around trying to hack it. Okay, so...
So you corrupted some data.
Everything that you were shown in the Matrix could be a fabrication that the Master wants you to see. The Matrix itself has been hacked before.
Right.
So we know that the pure data stream in there is not.
See, but here's the thing is, and I understand what you're doing here, Sean, and I appreciate what you're doing, but what you're doing now is exactly what those same people you're trying to comfort did with Brainy Morbius. They went back and they said, okay, well, Hartnell was the first Doctor, so it couldn't have been past lives because this particular story cemented. I can't remember which one cemented that Hartnell was the first incarnation. So those must have been. They're presuming those must have been Morbius's past lives. That's what we were seeing there.
Right.
And so you're doing now what they did then in order to justify the fact that Hartnell was the first Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I appreciate what you're doing there, but it's the exact same thing that other people look at and go, well, somebody else just did that to me. So you're doing it to them. That's my point.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Is that if you're upset and you don't want your Morbius to be destroyed, well, here's an out for you. You just keep believing that because you could make this justification for it.
More than anything, he gave the next showrunner an out to go, well, no, the Master was just lying this whole time. And undo what he's just done.
Well, yeah, and we've seen that happen before with Moffat.
Yeah.
Moffat reset the Time Lords by saying that the moment was, just the 50th anniversary special.
Yeah.
Was basically recasting what.
And the next showrunner wouldn't even have to
Davis
work so hard.
Yeah, that's true.
But
Look,
isn't it interesting that Chibnall has made a concentrated effort to kind of undo everything Moffat undid?
Well, yeah, that's true. Now there truly is no.
So we wiped out Gallifrey.
Gallifrey.
There are no Time Lords. You're the last one. Moffat comes along. Well, no, we're going to fix that. We saved him and
we're giving you more regenerations.
We're going to do that. And then Chibnall comes along and goes,
No,
they're
we're
all
wiping
dead.
out Gallifrey, and it didn't matter that you got more regenerations because you were going to regenerate anyway.
And also ensured that the show will go on forever.
Yeah.
Which is another thing that I'm not sure is a good thing.
What's that?
Well, under the Morbius rule, which is what I'm going to call it for lack of a better title, where we all thought 12 is that we were all under the assumption that 12 was the number, and then Moffat comes along and
Morbius didn't set forth the 12th generation.
Assassin.
It was Deadly Assassin.
You're
Yeah,
right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, it was the Deadly Assassin.
That Deadly Assassin is what broke Morbius.
Yes.
The lore busting in that is what broke the Morbius story.
But we've all taken it from Deadly Assassin on. That's been the rule. We've all just kind of taken that at face value. That's the way this works. And so then Moffat comes along and comes up with this huge engineering feat to not only solidify it, but explain it and then retcon it by giving us more and moving those goalposts. And so now the Doctor has more regenerations. But doing it in a way that he
necessitated him moving the goalposts so he could be the one to do it.
Right.
He didn't move the goalposts in order to do it. Well, he did, but moving the goalposts necessitated him being able to do it. He had to move the goalposts, or else he wouldn't have made it to the area. He didn't see himself making it to the point where he could fix it.
We were coming up against that ceiling,
right,
needing a way to fix it. So he came up with this whole scenario to fix it. Okay, great. But one of the things that came out of that was we never knew how many regenerations Matt Smith's doctor was given? Did he get another cycle of 12? Or was he kind of just given a blanket, a blank check? You're just going to regenerate until,
Right.
as whatever time that you decide not to.
Right.
We don't know. And so now Chibnall has kind of stepped on that and said, it's always been that way. The doctor has never died. From all the way back at the beginning of time.
Right.
The doctors had this ability to keep regenerating, which suddenly does kind of create well, then what did the Time Lords do for Matt Smith?
Well,
because
see,
he was going to
well,
regenerate.
no, and I've got a headcanon for that, and
Okay,
it's the
lay it on
fact
me.
that, so, because they wiped his memory, and he didn't remember that he had these previous lives, so he thought he was out of regenerations. So all that cloud of regeneration energy did was kickstart the next one. Not give him new ones.
Right.
Just kickstart the next one. Because that's what caused him to regenerate.
Right.
Because he mentally thought he was going to die, so he would have died.
The other thing that
Okay,
did,
I'll buy that.
but the other important thing that you're missing there is the other thing that it did is it gave him the energy in order to take out the Daleks.
That's true.
Too,
Yeah, a
because he
boost.
used that regeneration as a weapon as well, and that's what ended up taking out the Daleks and saving Christmas.
So it also explains.
So it maybe cheapens the fact that they gave him that gift of 12 more regenerations, but he still needed that energy boost in order to take care of and put the stamp on and finish that and save Christmas. So it wasn't a waste.
Yeah, no.
It wasn't a waste.
It also explains why did Matt Smith have the ability to heal River's wrist?
Yes.
Why did he have this leftover regeneration energy?
Yeah.
Well, because he's always got this regeneration energy. He just didn't necessarily know it. So there's a lot of things that kind of pile into this. But now, and I understand from an overarching meta story standpoint, the Doctor's never going to die. Their name is in the title of the show. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
But the moment you introduce this regeneration so that you can carry on with a new actor, that's a very cool mechanic to have. But the rule of 12 gives us an end point. There's something that's going to need to happen to move that goalpost, which Moffat gave to us. Okay, great. But we still need to have that finale. We still need to have that finite number out there.
Because they would always just be moving the goalpost no matter
Right.
what.
They
That's
would
what would happen.
continue to do
so
it.
why bother?
I think the other things that you have to
because the Doctor is now immortal.
No, you're
reals.
wrong. You're absolutely wrong. And here's the reason. Because we have said many times through the series that the Doctor can die. The Doctor has the ability to die. A regeneration could be interrupted. And that was the whole point specifically of the River Song story arc. The Impossible Astronaut was she was going to pump him through enough energy that before his recycling she was going to kill him, and that would kill him for good. And they knew that. So they haven't changed that at all. The Doctor can die. The Doctor nearly died from the toxicity on Metebilius 3. Not Metebilius 3. The
Adrazani?
Thank you, Adrazani. I didn't remember. I love that story. I remember. He nearly died from that, and it was alluded to that he because of the toxicity of that, he nearly didn't regenerate. And that's what kind of caused that regeneration to be a little bit wonky in his illness. Well, we've retconned that's what that is. But we've retconned a lot of stuff. And the other instance was. When River tried to attempt to kill him the first time with the lipstick, had she not given him her regeneration, he was in that paralysis where he could not regenerate.
Right.
He was going to die. So we have established that the Doctor still can die.
But all of those instances are retconned based around what we thought we knew of Time Lord physiology, of Time Lord regeneration.
But the Doctor still has Time Lord physiology.
But the Doctor is
still
not a
the-
Time
It's the
Lord.
template for the time.
But he's the template, and so everything that has come from him for the Time Lords is basically his physiology, or her physiology, their physiology. So they still adhere to those same rules that have been established. Nothing's been said that that's not true
But
yet.
nothing has been said that it isn't.
No, you're right. You're right.
This
You're
is the point
right.
that I'm arguing, is that you can look at it in the way that all of these things that River was concerned about, or that, well, this will stop the regeneration cycle, stuff like that, they have retconned that into
from the perspective of
what we know about
understanding that the Doctor's a Time Lord.
Exactly.
Yes, yeah.
But once we have now established that that's not the case, the Doctor has been immortal, you're going to tell me that this being that has lived for the entire length of Time Lord society, however long back that
it's
is,
been billions. It's been
billions of years, has never run into a situation where they got hit with something interrupting their regeneration process before that would have killed them, but didn't?
Clearly not, because the 13th Doctor's still alive. I mean,
but that's just it. So, I in all of that time, all of that long timeline, there would have been Spectrox poisoning.
That's the least,
would have been,
but that's the least of our worries right now. And the reason being is because, again, this has been done time and time again. The first Doctor was never established to be a Time Lord at all in the time that series was on the air. There was never explained. They were he and Susan in the original script were from the future, but they were patently human. They were humans from the future. That got excised from the script, fortunately, and that's why we've evolved into what we've evolved. Regeneration was added in order to, create another cycle for a new actor come on board for a very successful television series. And that worked. And so that gave us, but we never established where the Doctor's from. If you want to argue it, Terrence Dix was the first lore breaker stepping in and introducing us to the Time Lords, stepping in and introducing us to the fact that there's controlled regeneration. And then the Time Lords, can basically control what happens to the physiology of the regeneration cycle. So, and then again, when Morbius came along and it gave us the idea that there were past lives before Hartnell's Doctor, and then Deadly Assassin stepped in and argued that no, there's only 12 lives, and he was on his fourth. So there has been instances where this has happened, and Doctor Who's gone on and adapted itself and retconned itself in order to make things work, and that will continue to happen in the future. So it doesn't matter that right now it appears that she's immortal. Eventually somebody can step in and say, well, no, because those regenerations still apply to her, and it just takes one story, or those interruption of regenerations apply to her, and it just takes one person stepping in and writing that into Doctor Who history for it to make it be canonical.
Right.
So
and
I don't think there's any worry about that.
Well,
I think that's why I'm all of these people up in arms over, you've completely screwed everything up. No, they haven't, because you can hand wave it in the next episode and it's gone.
And that's why I'm trying to decide if Chibnall is as clever as he thinks he is, because he's given us this immense, earth-shattering, all of these things changed, and yet nothing did.
Right.
And
that's why
really
I do think he's clever.
That was the intent, is look at what I'm doing. Nothing is different. And yet, there's a lot of stuff, as I said, for all of the big, huge ideas that are present in this episode, there's a lot of them that feel like this wasn't really well thought through. For example, so the Master kills all of Gallifrey. Did he have to kill some of these people 5, 6, 7, 8 times because that's how many regenerations they had left over, and then chuck them in the freezer?
Potentially. The thing is, I think much
multiple mass murder are we talking about?
And that's fine, because I think that's either something that A, can be left a mystery, or B, can be explored later. In fact, I think that's probably things that Chibnall felt could be explained in extra material outside the television series, or something that somebody could deal with later. Again, it only
doesn't really need to be explained.
Or doesn't need to be explained.
Or it needs to be
dropped lines
this
somewhere.
Is where fans come from. This is the geeky nature of obsessing over the minutia of a show. The idea of putting dead Time Lords in Cyber Bomber is terrifying.
Sure.
How cool was that? And the great look and the capes and the thing. Yes, fantastic. All kinds of excited about this. Shoot him. Blam. Okay, first of all, why do we need cyber armor? Because it's pretty much worthless if you're going to get shot and fall over dead.
Because it looks cool.
It's like worse than Stormtrooper
Because it looks cool.
You have a guy beating you up with a stick. You don't need the armor.
It looks cool.
Okay, but then he regenerates and comes back. And Billy asked, he says, okay, so how many regenerations did that guy have? if he died and the master chucked him into stasis or whatever, and he had used 5 of his regenerations, does that mean that according to this rule of 12, that Cyberman can only come back another 7 times?
Well, and the master has a line of they can regenerate forever.
But why?
They keep coming back.
That's true. That's not explained.
That is not explained.
It's not
no.
explained. And we get that moment when we go back to Tatooine when he's setting up the society, and we gift this to, it's woven into all the genetics of the Time Lords that we are now, you can regenerate and you get 12 of them. But they still don't establish if that's a genetic imprint, that it only works 12 times and then it's done, or if it's a
Well, it's obviously not, because they gave it to they gave a new set of regenerations to the master.
This is nitpicky.
But here's the thing: is you are wanting all of the answers at once, and what I'm saying is what Chibnall did is he. In fact, there's a blank spot in the Matrix. There, if you look at that time, there's that.
Yeah.
That huge.
There's a huge error,
that,
and I think number one, he has set that up for himself in order to do more lore changing or more lore building. At this point, it's no longer lore busting; it's lore building, because he's now dropped this bomb on us that's changed a lot of elements about the past, and now he can build upon that, or he has the option to give other people. So yes, while the questions about why do they have multiple regenerations, that to me is left hanging. That's unforgivable. But something like, those questions about what's her name, Tetuan. Those questions are allowed to be expounded on later on. I mean, we'll get a Deadly Assassin down the line where they'll explain why that they set up the 12. So I think in order to nitpick those sort of things that are left hanging, unless we become duck ponds in the future, I don't think that we can bash on that kind of stuff or even be all that frustrated that we didn't get those answers, because again, it's built into that whole story of the Matrix that piece is missing.
Because half of the story was a data dump anyways.
Right. The majority of the story was a data dump.
That's where that data bomb went off. That's why there's nothing there in the Matrix. We already covered that.
In the Gallifrey stories,
yeah.
Right.
But so there's just a lot of moments like that it had this grand setup and this huge implication and this big deal. But then once you start to pull up that thread, you go, "No, wait a minute, does that really work or not?" And believe me, I liked this episode, and my TARDIS grade is because of the scope and the audacity and the hugeness of the things. I could be really, really down on it. I could delve into all kinds of things that were poorly executed, like the Irish cop story on. That whole thing is a metaphor for the Doctor's memory being wiped.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it was brilliant.
Yeah,
that was brilliant.
That was clever.
Brilliant.
Yeah, because how much talking did that generate last week when we were trying to figure out who was this guy and who was that guy and how much misdirection that was. And it was Chibnall throwing directly in our face what he was going to reveal to us without revealing it. That's what I liked about it. I love the fact that it was a placeholder for being a metaphor of the timeless child, but also being so. How did the master explain that it was something that would be so mundane that people would ignore it, that they would see that not think that was anything to. And so it was basically overriding that data that was trying to be hidden that he managed to get through. And I thought that was brilliant. Because after last week, sitting there watching that, thinking, how could that even possibly be resolved or tied into this next story, and for it to just simply be a construct of the Matrix, I thought was perfect.
Yeah,
perfect.
Would have been too far of a stretch to have it be anything else.
Yes.
Yeah, well, in confines of the way the story
like maybe a Captain Jack. Origin. Sorry, I'm still going to give you a hard time about that.
I want to talk about how upset I am over what's the guy's name?
Koshaman.
Koshaman. Yeah.
Let me tell you how.
What's
upset
his
I am
face from
about
Game
Koshaman.
of Thrones?
Yeah, that guy. Let me tell you how upset I am about Koshaman. Koshaman's running around, and he's awesome. He is so cool.
In this story.
Yes. He's talking about blowing stuff up. And he's just, and I'm like, I'm loving this guy. When are you going to pull the rug out from under me? When's he going to pull the mask off and be revealed? And then we're setting bombs on the ship, and he's got his little Bluetooth headset on, and he's talking to somebody. And then they don't cut to who he's talking to. They never revealed who he was having this conversation with. And I was like, aha! There it is! He's spoiling the plan. He's letting the master know. I knew it. He's a bad guy. And then the bombs all go off accidentally. Oh, you're a saboteur. I knew it. And then it turns out he's not. He actually is the greatest character ever. And I'm like, man.
But you're only mad about that because you presupposed last week
right,
that he was the master. And I have warned you.
Totally right.
I have warned you about that. You can't build this stuff up in your head because you're going to be let down all the much more
You're
the
right.
following week.
I am not disputing that at all. This is me admitting, man, I was stupid.
I think one of my only niggles about it was the fact that happens and everybody's off the ship and we didn't get to see that.
Yeah, they were able to get out.
It was a
quickly.
little too convenient.
I was totally thinking there was this TARDIS on the cyber ship.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so where did this come from? And it
Well,
wasn't until Jodie went and stepped into one
Right.
at the end
I
that
think
went,
it helps that
oh.
if you notice when it lands
it-
on top of
yeah,
and
it literally-
destroys buildings.
Yeah,
so
it crushes
they could
into the
literally
building,
go through
yeah.
a floor and get into the
Yeah,
building out of the ship.
It's possible. Don't get me wrong, and that's why I say
quick.
it's a little bit of a niggle. It was too quick of a cut. And the other thing that I had a problem with is, and mostly because this will get them away later, so that when the master comes back, this is how it happened. Did you hear the master comment about quick get in there or something? He makes a comment. I don't remember exactly how he says it, but it's almost ADR in there, so that later you can say, "Oh well, he managed to get out," but it was like get in there quick or something. It was like he was ushering a few Cybermen into a TARDIS to make a quick getaway as well. And I really feel like that was ADR'd in later so that they could bring him back later. So we're not going, wait a minute, we watched that whole Citadel blow up.
But we watched him burn alive.
Oh, absolutely. But here's the thing is,
I hope
maybe
that
that's why it bothers me, because we have always brought the best. Right, we've never needed it back, with the exception of the stupid resurrection scene in Time with the Doctor, which we didn't need that either. But
that at least explains why he's crazy.
Yeah, but he was crazy before that.
But this was really crazy. This was like
super
true.
crazy.
super crazy. Not just a little bit. You were broken crazy.
I am now landing on the fact that this is incarnation after Missy. I don't have a problem with that now. So,
and I really hope that the Cybermen don't get in there with them. Because I would like to have that plot line be done.
I'm hoping they don't, but I think because him particular is saying "quick, get in there" or whatever he said, something to that. I'm paraphrasing.
Something along the lines of "follow me" or something.
Follow me, quick, follow me.
So
or
it's
something
possible
like
that it's
that's
him gets
why
in,
I
but
think
not
he.
them. Too.
That's why he got it. And a lot of people are dogging on the design of the cyber Time Lord things.
I didn't love the headpieces.
Oh,
but how else were you? I loved
it.
the
And
intricate designs on the helmet.
Here's why I loved
etchings.
it. People are saying, why would they have those collars? Why on earth would they have the collars and the robe-like coverings? And my answer to that is dressing for the occasion.
Oh yeah,
that is
it's
so
totally the master
in the
deciding
MO of the
to do
master. That is why they're designed that way.
And they need a headpiece. They need
perfectly
something
fine
because they
with
can't have the handles anymore.
Right.
They're not actual Cybermen.
But
They're
somebody
Cyber
pointed
masters.
out, said, aren't those like collars? Aren't those? Don't they look like they're made of gold? Isn't that problematic?
They never look gold to me. They still look silver.
Maybe the master corrected that in this new design. That's how off the chart arrogant this man is. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put gold on the costumes. That's what I'm going to do.
The show has given it tremendous implications for the future, and that's what I like about it. I think that's what's best about what Chibnall did here.
There's so much more now to explore too, especially with this new division, which I assume is a subsection of the CIA.
Well, I think it is the CIA. I think it's what became the CIA.
Or what was before the CIA, maybe.
I think it's what. I think it's what the CIA
what
became.
Preceded the CIA.
I think it's what becomes the CIA eventually. Yeah.
And what's great about how he told the story is there's so much of it that we presume and connect the dots ourselves, and then you continue to connect those dots. Like, oh well, whatever renegade or fugitive doctor was doing that made her run away was while she was with the division, and so it continues to connect those dots to what we've learned. It's pretty cleverly done.
I love that the division was a group of interventionists. They wanted to be involved, and that's solely what the Doctor's been about this whole time. Is that she has always been upset with the fact that the Time Lords were just observing and never stepped in and did anything, and that's being that faction of a foundation. I think is pretty cool. Lots of cool things they can do there.
Absolutely.
Graham continues to be the best thing ever, and he had me worried. He legit had me worried when he turned to Yaz and says, "If we don't,
no, don't do it." And he gives this absolutely what a great speech,
brilliant speech. And she's like, "Yeah, you're a pretty good human. That's it. That's all I get."
I'm from Yorkshire. That's a what did she say? That's practically a love letter.
Sarah turned to me during that scene and said, "Oh no, Yaz is gonna die, not Graham."
I wondered about that too, but she was the first one headlong into that barrier. She
just gone,
gone. She just goes in.
Yeah, Yaz grew leaps and bounds in this, and then Ryan. I was legit concerned for Ryan because this harkens back to those moments in the Ghost Monument, where he's all gung-ho and grabs a gun and I'm going to go fight the thing. And now he's on the other side
now
of
he's hesitating.
I loved that.
Yes.
No, that was great.
That was such a great
It was such a growth moment
that
for
was
him.
what made me think, oh, they're going to kill him. They're going to force a gun into his hand and he's going to wind up dead.
I love how they came full circle too, and it's something as simple as when he throws the bomb. And do you remember in Spyfall from the beginning where he missed the shot? And this time he nailed it. That was such a nice moment because I saw that and I was like, that was completely a callback and a follow through from something that happened in or didn't happen in Spyfall. So I thought that was brilliantly done as well. But I was with you. There were moments where I was like, oh, we're going to lose one of these companions. Every time something came up, I was like, we're going to lose. And I genuinely loved, although it wasn't all that much of a surprise, but I genuinely loved when the Cybermen are bearing down on Ryan and the other two, and you hear the shots, and then it cuts away, and the Cybermen are dead, and there's the three standing behind him, and Yaz pulls the helmet off, and I was like, okay, I should have seen that coming, but I still love that. That was so great.
And what a great... We've never had that.
No.
Being such an old trope.
Well...
We had the Doctor in a Dalek.
Well, we've had an Ian in a Dalek. And we had Lytton and the other guy that were using the Cybermen in...
that's right.
Revenge of the... Or Attacking the Cybermen.
Yeah, you're right. I'd forgotten about that.
They were subverting the... by using the suits, yeah. So, no, it has happened before, but... what I liked about it, though, was the fact that what every fan was probably screaming when Graham was coming up with the suggestion of hiding in the cyber suits, every fan was probably screaming, and I internally was going, there remains, and he says it.
Oh, yeah.
He says
they
addressed it, and I liked that. And I was like, okay, I'm glad you're acknowledging the fact
scoop all the goop out.
There's some gruesomeness in there as well.
The smell in that helmet. But the genius part of it too, we see, we don't even really see, we just know that they're cutting them up and getting ready, and then you don't see any of the in between. You don't see Graham bumbling into walls and not being able to see and making a stormtrooper helmet joke.
Right,
we don't get any of that until the reveal.
Right.
And that's why we forgot. That's why
right.
it was so, oh, yeah, okay.
Right, because all we see is this scene of Ashad, while they're hiding in the suits and
right.
searching for it.
I don't know that I'd have had my eyes open. The minute that Tupperware door opened up, I'd have been... Because I don't want to look through that screen and see him recognize that I'm in this suit.
Yeah.
I don't want. I'd rather just be blasted and be, didn't see it coming. Quite literally, didn't see it coming.
I tell you what I like a lot, and it went back to last week. We were talking about specifically on TARDIS how great of a character Shad was, and how we'd like to see that be kind of the next Davros, and
that.
come back.
So
Well,
much for that idea.
and it wasn't until we were about I was about a third of the way into this episode, and I kind of thought he's almost become one note. He's not as I'm not as impressed with him anymore because he has he has very little vision for anything. He's just really kind of single-minded on his efforts. There's no imagination there anymore. There's no what did I see in this guy?
Well, and the master calls it out.
And then we get just as I'm thinking that we get engaged in that conversation with what's that? Well, then you're just robots, and I was like, he's totally saying what I'm thinking.
Yeah, the revelation of the death particle kind of just takes all the teeth out of a shot.
It does. It totally does. And he says, what you, and we'll become, excise, then you'll just become robots. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of lame. And then when he said, he started talking about the Cyberium in him, and I thought, oh crap, the master wants the Cyberium. And I thought, and just as I'm thinking, well, that's going to be his end goal. That's what he just shoots him. I was like, this is totally playing out the right way. This is how this needed to happen, because I was already starting to doubt his shot and starting to not like him as much as I liked him last week. And the master's kind of cleaned all that up for me, so I'm okay with that. I do like
adding
him.
insult to injury, the line, you throw a stick in this universe, you'll hit a robot. I mean, not just am I going to make fun of you and your plan. I'm really going to insult you about
The
it.
best line from the master, though, was after having shrunk him, and he picks him up and goes, oh, I should have said, you need to be cut down. He thinks of it after he's already done. He's like, oh, I should have used that line.
Still laughing at his own jokes.
I should have said, you need to be cut down to size. What's his name? Sacha Dhawan. He is so good as the master. He's just, and I'm nervous every time he's on the screen. There never before.
You never know what he's gonna do.
Yeah, he's so manic and so unpredictable that never before has there, even with John Sim, never has there been a master where I really felt like everybody was in danger at any moment because he was so unpredictable and you had no idea what he was going to do. And what solidifies that idea is just that when he turns and shoots a shot just before you even realize what's happening.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's just, or zaps him with the matter decompressor. Yeah,
brilliant moments with that.
What was the particle called?
Was it
The death particle.
Death
or
particle.
something like that.
I was kind of like you. It was kind of like that takes the teeth out of him.
Had it been, it preserves anything within a cyber suits, it would have made a little bit more sense of a plot for the Cybermen to
right,
use.
but it wouldn't have followed along with the fact that Ashad, his ultimate goal was to be AI.
Yeah.
It also is one of those standing on the shoulders of giants stolen
Yes,
ideas.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Because Davros already did this with the reality bomb. It's the same thing. It's going to destroy all of it.
You're absolutely right. And the parallel, too, that I saw was that harkens back to Genesis of the Daleks, all the way back that far.
Oh, tell me about
is
it.
the whole scene in there where she's holding the detonator for the particle.
Yeah.
And it's almost that moment of the hesitation of him, putting
yeah.
the circuits together to kill all the Daleks. And that was, if nobody believed that Jodie Whittaker could perform, this was her moment. I mean, I've always thought she's a great actress in everything that she does, and she's got some really powerful emotional, meat when she acts. But that whole scene was just so exhaustingly emotional. I thought she was brilliant in that scene.
In this whole episode.
She was brilliant in this whole episode, but in that scene just especially.
So my problem
And the speech she gives to the master afterwards.
Yeah.
That was
my problem with
amazing.
the death particle is that it's a twofold stolen. When the Doctor originates this idea in Genesis and says, if you had a virus
Yeah.
that would kill everybody, would you release it?
Right.
Davros, of course, gives us that great speech and says, yeah, I would. And then Davros invents a reality bomb that is going to kill everything, everywhere, except for what he's deemed this. So now the Cybermen have a version of it that's going to eliminate all organic life everywhere. And the Master zaps him. And then the Master gives this wonderful, I really thought that was going to kill me. Like, he was actively wanting to die and end it. And it didn't work. And so now it's just like, okay, plan B. La, 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 la.
Yeah.
You know, what a great moment for that. But then they set this thing off at the end of the story.
And then he tries to escape.
Well,
And
that's
but
the other
more
problem with
troublesome-
the escape thing.
More
But
troublesome. Why didn't it wipe out everything in the universe?
No, it was
No,
supposed to be
no.
planet by planet.
planet by planet.
Okay,
it
when
was-
did they say that? Because I was under
When
the
a
impression
shot
it
is
was
talking,
everything.
is explaining what the God
Yeah.
particle, God particle, the death particle
We
is.
already solved that one.
He explains that they were going to go from. In fact, I think it's a destroying every organic planet by planet. I think specifically
Yeah.
is how he says it. So it's only going to be localized to that area.
okay.
Yeah.
To that planet. It
I
would
was
wipe
under
out the whole planet,
And it
but
would-
you'd have to go to each planet.
and it
I
would
was under the impression they were going to have, it would just...
and it
done.
would, as long as he had the Siberian, it would not kill him. It would not strip him of his organics until he was ready for the Siberium to accelerate them or ascend them to the next plane of
Well, that's what
reality.
they told him.
Yeah, well, that's what the Siberian was telling him. I believe that, but
So considering that the Siberium is in the Master, would that then protect him from the death particle anyway?
well, that's good.
Oh,
That's a
see,
good
there's
point.
an even better
Yeah.
way of retconning
That's
it.
a good point. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah,
It's just
so
he's
he
trying
didn't
to save
need,
his
he
Cy-
didn't need
He's
the
just trying to
following.
save his Cybermen. Then.
Yeah, you're right. He didn't need to follow me though, did he?
Well, in order to say if they want the Cybermen to show up, that's
which-
how they get it to be fixed.
Well, Sean pointed out that he almost was disappointed with the fact that it didn't kill him when he shrunk a shod. He's so much baiting the Doctor into doing it. Do it to that I almost wonder now in the back of his head does he realize that the Siberian would have protected him anyway, and so
that might
he
be.
would have been fine for them
Yeah.
for the Doctor to wipe everything out because he would still have survived. Interesting. I didn't think of that.
I also, back in the negative column for just a moment, so we've got the death particle, the idea of dead bodies being resurrected to be put in cyber suits, been there, done
Yeah,
that.
Rassilon already tried that in Supremacy of the Cybermen.
And
In fact, he was going
Death
to
in
put.
Heaven,
He was specifically going to put Time Lords. He was going to cyberize Time Lords in order to make them be, and their regenerative abilities would make them even more of a superior cyber race too. So,
well, if you're going to steal Rassilons, steal from the best.
although that ended up being a subverted alternate timeline, so
Yeah.
that was different. But
The Carmel Master Plan,
that's
obviously is
that's totally where we were going with
totally
this.
where-
Yeah. Well, the whole idea of the Doctor being there at the time that society was being created, this mysterious other that, and then a lot of the stuff that was sort of quasi set forth by Mark Platt and Lungbarrow is both utilized and destroyed as well at the same time. So it tore a lot of Lungbarrow up. There's take a lot of headcanon retconning that one in order to make that one work. But it could be like maybe false memories, false placement.
yeah.
Because I haven't read that one yet, but I think that one starts out recounting the Seventh Doctor recounting a lot of the history.
then that's easily
So
fixed.
that could be easily fixed. Although, a lot of argument for that I've seen. Somebody purported that the reason that the Doctor tends to forget how old he is very frequently
That's why.
could be to the fact that it's almost these memories are repressed and not erased, and occasionally little things come through. And I think Andy made a good point pointing out that the Seventh Doctor probably started to remember a lot of this, and that's why he becomes so mysterious. And there's things are alluded to in the build up for this master plan that Cartmel and the other fellas had put together that carries over into a lot of the Virgin New Adventure stuff, where we get a lot of that lore building in there. And I love where Andy's head is here about how a lot of that maybe is coming forth from being repressed. But he's able to kind of suss it out. But then when he regenerates into 8, he suddenly has lost all of that, what he's sort of recalling or what's coming back to him. So.
And would he have kept it if it hadn't been for the anesthetic disrupting
Yeah,
the
good point.
process?
Yeah, yeah, could
and,
have been
and
point.
causing that amnesia.
Good point.
The other nice thing about this, the whole reveal.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Did you have other?
The only other one would have been obviously the Master and the Cybermen, as Jamie pointed out, has been done before, and then what was the last one that I pointed out? Was the idea of inserting a missing doctor into the timeline.
Oh yeah,
which we kind of covered last week. But it just all of those things are like, you kind of stole that.
Well, no, he just borrowed some.
You repurposed it.
But it's nothing though that other writers haven't done before either, where
Sure.
they've borrowed upon borrowed.
That, again, that's me being very
Yeah.
negative on the episode. And
I
don't
think
want
It's
to
nowhere
be,
near
because-
as much of a carbon copy as Mark Gatiss has done.
One of the
Yeah.
things, yeah, that's true.
Very true.
One of the things that I think is very problematic is the fact that the fugitive doctor Ruth, her TARDIS is disguised as a police box when it's buried, and that specifically is. I mean, you'll have to retcon that in some way now, because that is stated that when he landed there, the chameleon circuit broke and got stuck in that form. So that will have to be somehow retconned and explained. Why is her TARDIS a police box if she is a previous incarnation of
Because
Archie?
she landed in the 60s and it disguised itself as a police box and she buried it.
She hasn't been there that long, had she?
We don't know.
That's true. We
I
don't.
just assume it was a small village that still had police boxes. We obviously still.
The TARDIS has an affinity for police boxes.
Well, yeah.
Although
we've
TARDIS
seen
may
actual
have-
police boxes in the show.
Oh yeah, yeah.
in the modern
absolutely.
era.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There was an Eccleston one or a Tennant one where they walked into an actual police box and it was set during current times.
That was you're thinking of the Matt Smith one where he falls from. He
Dr.
falls
Widow
from.
in the Wardrobe.
Yeah,
was,
Doctor Will in the Wardrobe, where he
World War
falls
II.
from space and.
Yeah, but
it was World War II.
there was a
Yeah,
modern
you're right.
one, wasn't there? Where I could have sworn there was an Eccleston story where he thought it was the TARDIS, but it wasn't.
I don't remember that.
Surely there's still random police boxes around small London towns.
Well, yeah, there's one sitting in a corner that you can find on Google Maps.
Yeah, so I landed
Of course,
nearby. And,
a lot of people suppose that was there because of Doctor Who.
well,
not because
but who knows how long they'd been there too?
Chicken-
So
chicken and
If
the egg.
Ruth comes back, her TARDIS will be something else the next time we see
Yeah.
it. It won't be a police
Well,
box.
I loved seeing TARDISes that have working chameleon circuits. The tree
yeah, that was great.
and the house.
Yeah.
I thought those were very cool.
What's great about the reveal also is we don't really know that the fugitive doctor goes by the name of the doctor. So then our naming convention.
We do know.
Do we?
Yeah, she says I'm the doctor. She says
okay.
she's the doctor.
Well, then never mind. Because I was going to say
And we're having to recall a few weeks, but
we just
yeah,
have
she
to.
says she's the
I was
doctor.
going to say we just assume that he takes up the moniker, the Doctor, in his first incarnation.
Yeah, no, she refers to herself as the doctor.
Well, then never mind. I forgot that bit.
Which is what retcons all these other doctors.
It's still the same person. It's just doesn't have to, like the War Doctor. It doesn't always have to be called the Doctor, just because it's the same person.
I think what this did, though, most importantly, is it made, again, Robert Holmes, Graham Harper, Douglas Camfield, Philip Hinchcliffe, Christopher Baker, Robert Banks Stewart, and Christopher Barry all doctors again. Because those are the faces in Morbius. Those guys are all now officially, again, canonized as doctors. Oh my gosh, this one's gone long. What else? Do you guys have anything else before we wrap
It's so
up?
funny that there are pieces of this canosity that are so important that I can be upset over them. And there are other pieces of this canosity that I can hand wave away and not give two cares about. How many times have they destroyed Atlantis? I don't care. How many times has the Earth been destroyed by solar flares? Doesn't matter.
I'm sorry. This story felt like an anniversary special to me. It just felt, it completely felt. Which
scope and scale.
You could argue it's the 15th anniversary because here in a few weeks it'll be 15 years. March 26th, I think, will be the 15th anniversary for the return of Doctor Who.
That's true.
I don't think that was the intention, but to me it felt like a anniversary special. It just I think because of the elements, and we haven't even talked about all of the callbacks of the master pointing to the fact that assassinating presidents. He was talking about the Panopticon.
Right through there, the Panopticon. And I was like, please go through that door. I need to see it.
I wanted to see that too.
Is it still green? Have they painted it?
That and just all of the when she
just the montage
when she uses her memory to break through out of the or to break through to get out of the TARDIS or not TARDIS Matrix. Just that montage of shots was just amazing.
Yeah.
So cool. And way to rub salt in the wound by using that shot from Morbius
to include it to make sure it's.
That's why I said at the beginning of this podcast was Chibnall sitting down watching some Doctor Who and went watching Brainiac Morbius and goes, I think I could fix this.
Troll level.
This is lore busting. All right, Sean, what do we got coming up with the schedule? You kind of alluded to it earlier.
I did, because, spoilers on the news next week. Doctor Who is not on. So we're returning to the world of Lethbridge Stewart and the Laughing Gnome with the Havoc Files, which is their collection of short stories. And we will be covering that in our reviews next week.
You know what? Just occurred to me.
What's that?
Chibnall still has not lied to us.
It's true.
It's very true.
We have to believe what he says now.
Make sure you're checking Traveling Vortex for updates on this podcast. While you're there, be sure to click on the Patreon link. Consider supporting us. And for those of you that are already supporting us, we appreciate it. And remember, you can send your comments to feedback@travelingvortex.com or by clicking on the Send Feedback link on the website. Until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.